What is up, Soul Fam? It's Sundial from Substance Overstyle, and welcome to a new video. Okay, so first up, I just want to say thank you to everybody who shared my last video or like shared the Instagram post where I was promoting the video. That got quite a lot of shares. So I did get some people commenting that they love the more simple content, which is great to hear. Like I sometimes find it difficult to make content that's a bit more simple, because in my mind I'm just like, well, this stuff is so obvious, surely. You know, I feel like everybody's talking about XYZ, but maybe everyone isn't. And I think that maybe some of the fundamentals and the basics are not being talked about widely enough, and maybe I should create more content. Especially for those of you who aren't really necessarily deeply initiated into more esoteric knowledge, might not know some of the stuff that I talk about here or understand some of the stuff that I talk about here. But this video is going to be we're going to go a little bit deeper, just because there's quite a lot happening in the fields at the moment. So I wanted to bring an Ascension update to you guys, because I am just noticing some big changes, and a lot shifting. I felt like a massive timeline jump, like a positive timeline correction happening over the weekend, and I noticed it very viscerally. And then that same day Emily did a field update with her husband Aleo. So, you know, if you guys are not already following them on Facebook, please do and have a look at that update that they just did, because they were talking about the sound of freedom, which I'm also gonna talk about a little bit here, because I do feel like disclosure is really ramping up. I was just talking to my hairdresser about this, and I did just post a reel on my Instagram, where because I went into the salon the other week, and I took his book. So let me just grab the book. I've spoken about my hairdresser in previous videos. So my hairdresser is an ET contact, much like my mentor Emily, and much like many of you who are going through like intense awakenings might also have had, you know, visitation from, you know, your star family, your galactic family, or various other ETs. So yeah, it's called Ed's Odyssey, How I Met Buddha and the Aliens. Is it mirrored? That's just a bit strange. But yeah, it's available on Amazon. So I took it in, got him to sign a copy for me. So there we go. Dearest Sundial, thanks for all your friendship and wisdom. But yeah, he's a really fun guy, really nice, really sweet. He's been through a very intense awakening. Apparently he mentions me somewhere in the book as well, but I haven't got to that point yet. But he has told me that he mentions me. Maybe, I don't know, I'll see if it made the final edit. He said that there was something, because I met him like 7 years ago, when he was like kind of beginning his awakening. He was starting to have like some really weird experience. He told me that he'd been getting into meditation and cleaning up his diet, and started having some really weird experiences, which he was a bit hesitant to share with me at first, because he was like, no, it sounds crazy. And I was just like, well, I'm here for crazy, and I've heard a lot of crazy things, so you can just tell me. And he was like, I had this experience where I was like floating up outside of my body like this, and I was like, oh yeah, that's normal, like you were probably like slightly astral projecting. And he's like, what's that? And I was like, oh, that's when you're like, your astral body will like become disconnected from your physical body, and you know, it can go off and explore like, you know, the world. It can explore like other dimensions, but a lot of the time it will. I told him to read Robert Monroe's Journeys Out of the Body book series. So it starts with Journeys Out of the Body, Far Journey, and Ultimate Journey, which I have recommended to you in my life-changing books video, where I did a whole video talking about all the most life-changing books that I've read that have been very critical on my awakening journey. Have a look at that video if you haven't watched that already. Now I will add Ed's Odyssey to that book list as well. But he said that after that his awakening started intensifying, and he started having a lot more very intense experiences, including one time when he was Skyping with someone. And this is actually tying really nicely with the Ascension update, actually. He was Skyping with somebody who was training him, helping him open up his gifts and learn how to use them, and, you know, use them responsibly and things like that. And the person literally shapeshifted in front of him. And the person had, you know, got his consent and told him, listen, I'm, you know, I'm an intergalactic I mean, we are, like, we have multiple parallel avatars that are part of our oversoul, that are living out lives in other star systems and other dimensions and also other parallel earths. Many of us have had the experience of waking up into some of these other bodies. For me personally, I don't consciously remember waking up inside, you know, like a Syrian body or a Lyran body. I had a Lyran visit me in the dream space, and a couple of other races who I wouldn't be able to like name, but which was actually really intense. I had this one Lyran come visit me, and it was around the time that I was doing some healing work with a very close friend of mine who's very, very connected to Lyra. And so basically in the session we basically channeled that she'd had her galactic Lyran family around her, basically forming a circle of light around her through a lot of her most darkest experiences that she's experienced in this lifetime. And she'd been through some really intense stuff, some really like horrible traumatic things that, you know, nobody should have to go through. But there was a specific purpose why she had chosen to come into this lifetime, to clear a particular story, but a particular part of the human story that had become completely distorted. And, you know, just there was a particular bloodline that she had to incarnate into to heal that particular distortion. So she was working with the Lyrans, and they were helping her and assisting her through this. So in that dream, I had a dream around that time, and this guy appeared to me. Well, I don't want to say guy because it was a Lyran. It wasn't human, but he was very masculine, and he looked exactly like her. He had the same hair. She looks very much like a lion, and if you know anything about Lyrans, they can be quite lion-esque beings. Not all of them, but they definitely have this kind of feline quality to them. Yeah, he looked like a lion, and he had this big mane, but he looked very much like her as well. Big mane of curly hair and freckles, and his face was completely blank. I couldn't actually see the face. And he didn't say anything. He just came with this kind of very regal, very earthly, elemental, very tribal. If anybody's like met with Lyrans, they have this very, very, what's the word? It's a very like matriarchal, it's like, I would say it definitely resonates with the frequency of the African continent. So I've noticed when a lot of people have, like I've noticed when I've met people that have a lot of African, like I have an African ancestry, they might also have a connection to Lyra. Not always, but yeah, there's definitely like an overlap there in my experience. But yeah, it's this kind of like, it's almost like a root race kind of energy, because they are our original ancestors. So anyway, he wanted to kind of speak to her, but he didn't have an explicit like message in words. It was more just like a frequency or like a visitation. So I did tell her about it the next day, but she started to experience massive like extrasensory perception opening up during the time that we were working together. So maybe she made contact with them herself. But yeah, so I mean, for me personally, I haven't so much woken up into the parallel avatars of myself in these other ET bodies, but I have woken up into like other earthly bodies, or during meditation sometimes I will find myself in another place. Like one time I was meditating before work, and I didn't go that deep into it, but it was deep enough where suddenly I found myself very, very clear vision, extremely clear. It wasn't in the mind's eye. It was like I was there. I'd been transported, but I was still half in my own body, and I was on a truck. Some kind of truck or lorry, and I was traveling with like some Irish gypsies. They were like blonde, light-haired, definitely had like a gypsy like traveler kind of vibe. And there was a woman talking about how she didn't know what she was going to do. She'd saved all her money just to pay for fuel, and it was around like October last year, so when the fuel prices were going up massively here because of the situation in Russia, Ukraine, and a lot of people were talking about, you know, like the insane like heating bills and things like that. so she was talking to me about that, and then she said something to like some people who were over my shoulder, and I turned around and I saw her son. Nobody told me that this was her son. I just knew it was her son, next to a guy that she was, you know, involved with. And I could see that this guy was really wanting to be in their lives and take care of them, but he was also a traveler, he was also of limited resources, and he was feeling like, how am I going to take care of these people? I want, you know, this woman to be my woman, I want this boy to be my boy, I want to be like a man and a father to this, you know, family. He wasn't saying that, but I could feel that from him. And it was like I knew them. I knew the situation, I knew all these people, and I don't know who I was. I have no idea who I was. And then I came back into my body and I was just like, what the hell was that? Like, was that a parallel version of me? Was that a past life? I mean, I believe that our past lives are not past lives, that they're all happening now, but was that happening, you know, in the now, like in this time space? Have I got like a parallel version of me that's on the earth at this time, or was that a parallel earth? It was extremely trippy. I don't know if any of y'all are experiencing this, but I've been experiencing this for a couple of years now, or like, you know, self-hypnosis where I'm like, okay, show me one of my other lives, and I'll go into, you know, I'll wake up in another body, and there'll be so many similarities with like what's going on in this lifetime, like who I am in this lifetime. It'll be like maybe I live in one of the cities that I've lived in before. I've lived, you know, all over the world, in India, in Thailand, in Mexico. So I think in one particular lifetime I was living in Bangkok, and I was going to a lot of the same places that I have been to in this lifetime. But I was married to a guy who was a model, but I wasn't a model in that life, even though I am one in this life. I was blonde. I was very like codependent, and this guy was like quite narcissistic and was like not really treating me well. And I do remember even having sex with my husband in that particular lifetime, and it was really painful, and I was just generally felt very sad and very disempowered. And then I came back into my body and I was just like, whoa, that was crazy. So yeah, being able to perform like self-hypnosis and past life regression on yourself can be kind of a cool thing to play around with. Yeah, I haven't been able to successfully have like a regression with somebody else regressing me. Only when I do it myself. So yeah, let me know if you all are experiencing these types of things, or if you've already met your star team. Yeah, it'd be great to hear from you guys. So I do feel like, you know, a lot of us are having these experiences, but even for those who aren't, obviously there's different bands of frequency with the awakening. A lot of the masses now are definitely waking up to what's been happening geopolitically. I mean, they can't not, like, they'd have to be so stupid to not notice what's going on. I mean, yes, I will acknowledge that a lot of people can be very brainwashed and very dumb. So maybe some of them are still going along with whatever the narrative is, but I feel like most people are noticing geopolitically what's been happening, and that something's really not right. And I think with the Sound of Freedom, a lot of that is now bringing things to the forefront. Now obviously with the mainstream are trying to play it off like the Sound of Freedom is some like QAnon conspiracy film. Now I do think that they have specifically targeted the awakened truth seeker kind of community with the film, because a lot of people will get excited about the idea that, you know, there could be some real disclosure happening, and will go and see the film for that reason. I also see that with the truth community, everything is a psyop, and, you know, it's good to be skeptical of everything, and it's good to question things and dig deep and do your due diligence, and be mindful about not falling into ascension traps. But it's also you know, it's helpful to just remember that God is always in control, and God will always use everything that the enemy does to serve the divine plan. So even if there is, you know, something nefarious happening with it, and I understand what people are saying. I watched a video where a trafficking victim was talking about Tim Ballard's connections to the Clinton administration when he was working for, I believe, Homeland Security. So that's not like, like people trying to smear him. That's just something that is known, that he, you know, worked for the government and in the Clinton administration. So that's something to bear in mind, because obviously the Clintons have been accused of doing some really dodgy stuff with the Clinton Foundation and, you know, Haiti, and possibly trafficking children out of Haiti. You know, there's a lot of children that were trafficked out of Haiti and have been for a really long time. So that's obviously talked about a lot in the Truth Seeker community and in QAnon spaces as well. So definitely something to bear in mind. Another person, I've also seen multiple other people saying that they think it's a psyop to kind of get everybody so alarmed about the idea that their children could be kidnapped and trafficked that they then submit their children to being microchipped. So that's also possible. Look, I always try and keep an open mind about everything, but I do think it's important to celebrate some wins where we have them as well, because essentially, like, anything that the enemy tries to do to subvert the narrative, it's just delay tactics, and in some cases it doesn't even delay the awakening, it even accelerates it. I mean, we saw that during the pandemic, how many people actually woke up because of the way that they went so hard in trying to kind of accelerate their own timeline. So yeah, that backfired for them. And, you know, I know a lot of people are getting impatient, they want disclosure now, but people are already kind of going crazy a little bit. So I mean, people are, like, let's be real, like, a lot of people are struggling with the amount of disclosure that's happening. For those of us who've been awake for many years, it seems like it's not happening fast enough, but you have to allow the people that haven't been at our level of awakening to integrate all the new codes that are coming in, because obviously what's happening galactically is our solar system is basically moving through the galactic plane, and what's happening is our sun, as it moves through the galactic plane, our sun starts streaming in light codes from Sirius, which is the great central sun. So basically we orbit around Sirius, the Sirian star system, and Sirius will orbit around Source eventually. Like, obviously everything is orbiting around everything in this kind of universal dance of like fractal sacred geometry and like spirals. So yeah, if Source is basically emitting these beautiful like solar Christ codes, then those are basically going to filter down through the Sirian star system, our great central sun, and then through our sun as well, and we're going to receive those upgrades. So we're seeing that with, you know, all the solar weather activity that we're having right now. You know, we're having CMEs, we're having solar winds, solar flares. So yeah, we're kind of, this whole like event that they've been talking about in kind of Ascension spaces, and, you know, like I said before, you know, when I first received the vision of the grand solar flash, which I talked about, if you search my videos for the event to grand solar flash, I talked about a vision I received of the grand solar flash, and then I compared notes with other people in my communities if they'd also received similar visions. And I actually didn't really believe that it was going to happen, because the idea that the sun will just suddenly do like a massive, like there would be a massive solar flare and there would be like a huge love wave and everybody would just suddenly awaken, just seemed too crazy and far-fetched for me to believe. But now what I can see is happening with the solar activity coming out of the sun is it's happening much more gradually than what we initially, you know, what hearsay and people were gossiping and saying that this is going to happen, the event is happening. It's not going to be like a overnight thing. Like, you know, I think some people who were doing channelings or who were doing quantum healing hypnosis technique, mainly coming out of the Dolores Cannon community, they were saying, you know, they basically tapped into lifetimes where people experienced the solar flash, and, you know, people were saying that they were floored instantly, and other people were taken onto ships, and I'm just like, that just sounds nuts. Like, I don't think that's gonna happen. Like, I look, I know that there's some pretty crazy shit that happens on this planet. I know aliens are real and demons are real, and I know that that sounds crazy to a lot of people, but I really don't think that it is. But the idea that everybody's going to awaken in an instant, and the people that can't handle the love wave energies are going to be taken onto alien ships, no, that would be crazy, because people would not be ready for it, okay? It just has to happen a little bit more gradual than that, I think, okay? If I were God and I was deciding what was going to happen, I would be like, let's do this a bit more gradually so that people can kind of get used to it. So, you know, the mainstream media has been slowly drip feeding UFO disclosure for a while, which me and my hairdresser were talking about, Ed. So people are getting used to the idea that there's ETs, and they're getting used to the idea that the government has known about ETs. Next, they're going to get used to the idea that the government got certain advanced technology from ETs. And now I think with the Sound of Freedom, people obviously know that human trafficking, child sex trafficking, is a big issue. It's not a conspiracy theory. Nobody's going to dispute the fact that children are being trafficked. Now, what Emily talked about in her field update the other day was how she was on Truth Social. Both her and Alea were talking about this. That she was on Truth Social, and basically Trump tweeted that he posted that he was going to invite Jim Caviezel for some event or some talk, seminar, and they were going to reveal stuff. They were going to talk about stuff. So watch her field update. She was saying that she thinks, or maybe they said, again, go directly to it yourself, okay, because you're getting this secondhand from me and I can't remember all the details, that either they said or she believes that they're going to name the various different alphabet agencies as being involved and complicit in the child sex trafficking. So when they start putting this together, obviously people on the Trump side of things who have been following QAnon and things like that already know about all of this stuff. They've already gone deep, and some of them, yes, I think go into some really crazy conspiracy stuff, which I don't necessarily agree with. I don't think that the earth is flat. I don't resonate with the New Age to Jesus crowd, although I understand where they're coming from. But yeah, I'll do a different video talking about New Age to Jesus, because it's very flip-floppy. It's to me, it's a sign of somebody who's extremely internally polarized. But yeah, when this starts to disclose more information about who's behind the trafficking of children and how this relates to ETs, it's game over. Like, it's game over. It's game over for the cabal. It's gonna be like we're gonna see what we've been waiting for such a long time now. The Great Awakening accelerating in full force, and it's already happening, because with the love wave energies that we are starting to see coming in now, that people are just starting to see things from a new perspective. They're dropping the density in the body that causes them to operate just out of fear, and they're starting to see things from a higher perspective. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a dream that I had the other night where I basically, what happens when I wake up from a dream, I always try and jot it down in my dream journal. But this one, it was like so crazy. I just quickly like opened my laptop and I jotted it down to my boyfriend, because I can type way faster than what I can write. It was quite funny, his reaction. Okay, so in my dream, I saw how, you know, we were going to start seeing ETs soon. They were going to start, like, literally, like, I don't think necessarily appearing in front of us. Maybe for those of us who are ready for that, we might start seeing that. I don't think that they're just going to start showing themselves to people, unsuspecting people who aren't ready to see that, especially not the benevolent races, because the benevolent races are quite careful about not wanting to scare people. Like, they won't even if you're on an awakening journey and you're wanting to make contact, I think most of the time they won't really appear. Like I've tried multiple times to meet with them, and they won't. I mean, the most I've seen is like some ships over Hampstead Heath, which I talked about in a previous video. They won't. I think they will only like physically appear to you. They'll communicate with you in other ways, so they can communicate telepathically with you. They can send you like light packets of information, but they won't physically appear in front of people until people are really, really ready to see them, and they know that that it's not going to scare the person. But I think more and more we might start seeing that, or we might start hearing stories of people who've been in touch with them. You know, interviews like my hairdresser Ed. He's done a bunch of interviews to promote his book. He did quite a few of them with the BBC, which I was very surprised that the BBC would want to talk to somebody who's talking about that. But he doesn't go really, Ed doesn't go into like the conspiracy side of things. Okay, that's my area. He kind of is more he's more about just disclosure of ETs, and you know, healing technologies that they're wanting to bring to us, and just the fact that, you know, we share cosmic origins with them as well. So yeah, so I said to my boyfriend, I saw in my dream how I think we might start seeing ETs soon, and it was my birthday, and I was flying in the ionosphere in a rocket ship. That was really fun, actually. I was in this like ship with like other beings, and yeah, I suppose I did meet with some beings, yeah. In the ship. And someone in the dream, okay, so this was crazy. So in the dream, I was talking with somebody who, I don't know exactly who they were, but I was on a ship with some galactic beings, don't know exactly the race, but there was somebody on the ship who also shared similar galactic origins but was human, and we were on the ship and we were both channeling, and it was weird, like we were channeling like light language and like, you know, just speaking in tongues, and also like singing this song, but it was also like a healing technology. But when we were doing it, it was almost like she would be doing it and I would know exactly what she was going to do. It was like I could predict what she was going to say, the sounds she was going to make before she said them. And I could understand also what she was saying as well, because I was able to trace it back. She was basically tapping into a band of frequency in which the minds of everyone were connecting. Basically, we can all psychically connect at this particular band of frequency because it's essentially connected to the universal God mind. So yeah, like this is some of the stuff that's going to be opening up for people here in this physical dimension, not just in the dream space. And also alien body parts. So what I was able to see was certain body parts would like shapeshift into body parts that belong to like different parallel avatars of you. Like, let's say, for example, you have a version of you that's, you know, Assyrian. Parts of your body might shapeshift into that part as we start to go through the awakening process, because you're going to start, all your avatars are going to start to become awakened and aware of each other and aware of the fact that you all share the same oversoul. And so there might be a period of calibration where you might glitch out and reveal, and we're going to start, like, I know that this has already started happening for some people where they've been able to see people's true form. Like, so maybe they're a parallel avatar that this person has as like another, you know, galactic, or sometimes even animals. So some people have parallel lives as animals, either in this, you know, on Earth, either this Earth, this timeline, or parallel timelines, parallel Earths, or even other dimensions or other star systems or other planets, other beings that look different, where people might be able to start opening their vision and being able to see the other people's form. And I do think that maybe that's what you know, that video that's going viral of that woman who's screaming on the plane, and she's like, that motherfucker is not real. And somebody else on the plane said that they looked at the person that was upsetting her, was making her scream, and he said that the person winked, But it wasn't like a wink like that. It was like a wink like that, which is a supposedly like reptilian shape-shifting eye. So I think as we start shifting, because we are shifting from 3 to 4, I was operating at a 4D level of consciousness now, where, you know, obviously if you're operating at a 4D level of consciousness, you can still see 3D, like you can still experience 3D, because when you're in a 3D level of consciousness, you can experience 2D, like I can read what's on this card, so you know you can still see 3D. But I think for certain people who maybe have a parallel avatar as reptilian, they might not be able to hold their form as easily. I don't know, I'm not a super expert on reptilians. Maybe somebody else can share what's happening with that, but I think definitely there was something to that story. Okay, so this is interesting, and I think you guys are going to find this useful. I definitely did. So there's a huge survival frequency matrix over the earth right now that loads of people are plugged into getting siphoned. So basically, when we talk about the matrix and you need to exit the matrix, matrix just means womb, or like a frequency net. So in the movie The Matrix, they talk about how we're plugged into this artificial, inorganic matrix that's like AI technology. So, you know, the whole AI thing it's not new. Like the technology that we're now experiencing AI through is new, but AI is actually very ancient consciousness that became, it's like a demonic antichrist, Watiko, like hive mind that I've spoken about in multiple videos, that became separated from source God. It's almost like the outer realms. And basically with the AI technology that people have created, it's creating portals for this consciousness to come in and plug into humans, because it needs humans to survive, or it needs basically any kind of life essence being that is connected to source to sustain itself, because it became separated from source creator. So loads of people have been plugged into this inorganic matrix for a really long time, even before, you know, this whole technology, you know, resurgence that we're seeing right now. Even with just the system of like maritime law was also like an inorganic harvesting system that a lot of people were plugged into. So this, I don't know if it's the same, I haven't been shown that yet, or if it's a slightly different band of frequency. I would expect it's probably slightly different band of frequency, but it's like this survival frequency matrix that people are plugging into, thinking that their sustenance is coming from this organic matrix, which is not the case at all. Your sustenance comes from God, and then you're feeding the matrix with your life force energy, and it's siphoning you. So basically what I saw in the dream was that frequency matrix is being dismantled by guardian races, and many of us also, I saw that we were basically helping to dismantle it. So basically those of us that have parallel lives as part of the guardian races, or are just working with the guardian races for whatever reason, are helping to dismantle this frequency matrix. And a lot of people are freaking out, because a lot of people have been so plugged into this thing for such a long time. You know, beings that have been trapped here, cycling in samsara for eons, are scared that this is the source of their sustenance, this is the source of their survival, and so they're freaking out because they're feeling like they're going to have to, like, you know, where is their sustenance going to come from? But they're being asked, you're being asked, if you've come across this video, you are being asked at this time to put full submission and faith in God, in your creator, okay? Because that is where your sustenance comes from. So being able to connect that frequency, but through the you know, the crown, the Sushumna, connect back to the streams that emerge from the creator through the stream, the living Christ stream. That is where your sustenance, your abundance, your mission, your divine union, all those good things that you experience on your highest timeline is going to come from. So a lot of people are scared because they don't want full submission to the creator for various reasons. You know, a lot of people have done things on this planet that they're maybe not so proud of, or they don't want to give up certain things, you know, the creator will ask them to give up, you know, because not everything is going to serve your highest good. So yeah, I could see how some ETs were breaking it down, pulling it apart, and in doing so we're seeing what it is and what we've been plugged into. it's kind of freaking out a lot of people because they're having to submit to God more and more for their divine abundance. Yeah. And he was like, that's nice, babe. In his head, he's probably like, what the fuck? Yeah, he doesn't fully understand all of it. I know. I'm fully considerate to the fact that some of y'all won't understand all of this either, which is fine. When I first started initiating into this work and doing my training with Emily, I did not understand. Like, I think I understood like maybe 10% of what she was saying, but I stuck with it and I did the work and I did, you know, I dedicated to the process and I learned more and more. I still don't understand a lot of what she says, or it's just too advanced for me to really be able to tap into, but you know, you'll get there. Okay, if you're here and you're watching this video, you're in the right place because you're doing the work to learn. And you know, maybe this, you know, maybe it might not be relevant for you because we've all got specific gift templating that is going to be slightly different. Like, some people have got just different areas of expertise, and that's completely fine. Like, we're not all supposed to be experts at the same thing. So yeah, but yeah, if you have any questions, do ask. If you need clarification on any certain points, I'll try and do my best. But also understand, with this type of stuff, a lot of it is yes, I spend a lot of time doing a lot of research and a lot of study, but a lot of it is channeled information as well, and it's about bringing those two together. When you do the research and the study and acquire the objective knowledge, and then you start opening up the feminine to bring in that channeled, like, intuitive information, then it starts marrying. That's the hieros. So a lot of divine wisdom then starts to stream in, and you know, some of it might not resonate, and that's fine. But yeah, hopefully there was something in there for all of you to understand and to benefit from. And yeah, if you have any questions, you can always ask them in the comment box below. If you want to book a session with me or a package of sessions, I'm now also doing 10 session packages because I feel like we can go way deeper and do much more work together in 10 sessions. So yeah, consider that, and you can send me a DM on Instagram or on Facebook to book. And yeah, I will love you and leave you, and I'll see you in the next video, guys. Peace out. One love.